And there we are. And of course, I'm not ready, am I? Where am I? All right. I want to say hello to everybody and welcome to the YouTube Model Builders Thursday night general hangout. These are live shows recorded now for prosperity. I figure I'd throw that one in for kicks. But Thursday night hangouts are for the general discussion of model railroading that we all can set a topic to discuss for the night. As everybody knows, so far on the panel, my name is Johnny Reb from Southeast Rails. Thursday night hangouts are the proud sponsor of the YouTube Model Builders community, the magazine, and YouTube Model Builders live show, which we just had one this past weekend. So it'll be the third Saturday of the following month, next month, when we'll have another live show. Hangouts, if you don't mind, if you're smoking or drinking alcoholic beverage, please turn your camera off. And when not speaking, please turn your mic off to help limit the background noise and any possible echoes that might be around. They do seem to come in and haunt us on these live hangouts. We also sponsor the YouTube Model Builders Big Build Contest, Build Railroad Structure. And that is hosted by Eric Hall from IMRRO, all in caps, lowercase, COM. And if you need more information on the Big Build Contest, go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. So, with that said, we'll start this show up. It'd be nice if I quit screen sharing. Anybody got any particular thing they want to talk about right now? Or I'll tell you what, I got two viewers coming up, popping in. The Q&A should be up and running for you. If you have a question, feel free to type it in. We'll be glad to try and answer it. If we cannot answer it here, we'll try and help you find the location to go to get an answer for it. And the Q&A should be on the right-hand side of your screen. Hi, Jim. I see you're working on something there. What you up to?
Cleaning and lubricating an old Bachmann G scale.
Hmm.
And the wheels were had quite a bit of carbon built up on them. So that was probably the reason why I couldn't get around a revolution of track without it stopping. They were pretty nasty.
Yeah.
So I took some 600 grit sandpaper and cleaned all these wheels up, these contact wheels up quite a bit. Still had the front four to do. I don't know if you can tell the difference from this angle of view or not, the difference between the clean ones and the dirty ones, but probably not.
Yeah, we can see. Yeah, we see a difference. They're not quite as shiny or neat looking as the drivers.
Right, and these aren't as bad as the drivers. The drivers were really bad, and I mean real. I'm surprised it even tried to run.
Yeah, the drivers are the ones that are really moving the loco anyway.
Right.
So
yeah, that's what I've been doing.
How you doing, Troy?
We're doing. How you doing, Johnny?
Oh, pretty good.
There you go.
Making up a switch tonight?
I'm preparing for a whole pile of turnouts. 36 of them.
Well, I tell you what, we got Andrew in Australia here. We got you here. Phil is just starting the layout. Jim, I'll direct this question to you also. Jason, if you got any comments on it, jump right in there because you were telling me that you helped your dad back when y'all had a temporary layout. But I think most of y'all, with the exception of Jim there, have already had previous layouts that you've built on. Track work question. During your first layout, what mistakes did you find as you were building, and what did you do to correct them on the layouts after that? Anybody want to start? Go right ahead.
I think the biggest problem I had was I tried to squeeze too much into a small area, and the drawings I had for the buildings weren't to scale. So when I actually laid my track, according to my diagram, I couldn't fit my buildings. They just wouldn't fit in. So I had to start all over again, spread things out a little bit further.
So your second time you actually drew everything into scale then?
Yeah, the program I was using at the time, which is a good program, don't get me wrong, was Extract CAD. And it had all these pre-drawn buildings that you could put in, and it looks really good on paper. But when it came to actually practically laying it down, it didn't work. The track was right, but the buildings, the actual physical buildings were too big.
Hmm.
That's why I changed over to using the program called SCARM, where I can actually draw my own buildings to the correct measurements. Makes a big difference.
What about you, Jim?
I didn't make any mistakes, John. Everything come out perfect first try. Didn't have a problem.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I did my plan in SCARM, and then printed out all the sheets and taped them to the bench top and cut them all out and traced where my center lines were and laid my cork and laid my track. And I didn't have, other than I've never really soldered much, so I've got some big old globs of solder where my feeders go into the side of my tracks, but some look worse than the others. But other than
that's the way
that,
to do it. If you can print turn out and everything in one-to-one scale, lay them out on your base and your buildings, a template for the base of your buildings. Lay it all out on your layout first to make sure everything's going to fit.
Yeah. Jim?
yes.
I was just letting you finish. I mean, Andrew, I guess,
No.
didn't he? He's still going.
No, just I
So
guess
you
I was.
haven't had any problems with the track kinking or anything like that?
Well, no, because I chickened out and I bought the Atlas already curved sectionals for my curves, and then used the flex track for everything else. So my radiuses were already set for me. I mean, they followed the lines that I drew anyways, but they were all, everything worked pretty good. I mean, I'm happy with it, but I'm no master modeler, so.
So have you got anything that you would do a little different if you'd done a second layout?
I wouldn't start a second layout. I just said, you know what? I ain't doing this hobby. I'll find another hobby.
Yeah.
No, I don't. No, the only thing I wish I could have done differently was had more room.
Yeah.
You know, I might have did my bench work different, you know, instead of the track, but I think I'd have went with more of a shelf, around the room shelf type somehow than what I have. But
Yeah,
I mean,
than actual benches.
right. But I don't know. There's different things in the bench work I'd have changed. Everything else is about the same. I just not enough room.
Yeah. Tell you what, Phil,
Yes, sir.
you're just now starting to build your layout. What have you learned in the Hangouts or YouTube videos that's helped you possibly avert any problems where you track work?
You know, I asked a lot of questions, and bounce back and forth between what maker of track I was going to use,
Mm-hmm.
and finally came up with a decision of what I could do with my abilities. Um, if this was a perfect world, I probably would hand build my turnouts and use flex track, or maybe do it all hand built. I don't know, actually. But I'm just in the process of ordering my track. I haven't actually started to lay anything yet. Um, I guess probably one of the biggest mistakes I did was I dove in too quickly.
What do you mean dove in too quickly?
Um, it had been a long break from childhood trains to adult, type trains, and I was buying stuff off of eBay, and I bought a bunch of this lifelike plastic ballasted track, and it's number one, it um, was used, so of course it was dirty. Number two, you're limited to what you can actually design for a layout. Number three, it didn't work real good. There was no way to add feeders without melting the plastic ballast. Um, when I first started out, it was a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and it was an oval with, a turnout making a shorter oval. That's what I guess I mean by I jumped into it too soon, as I bought a bunch of that track, and now it'll work fine for under the Christmas tree. The wife wants a Christmas train.
Mm-hmm.
But to make what I call an adult type model railroad, you want it to be as lifelike as you can make it, and that track just isn't appropriate for that.
Yeah.
As far as I have not started to fine tune any of my turnouts that I have purchased so far, I still have more to buy. And
What turnouts do you think you might use? Brand.
I'm going to use the Atlas, the custom line.
Okay.
Um,
Any particular reason for that one?
yeah. One, they were cheaper than the Pico. The Pico, when I was designing my track, I couldn't get an answer whether or not there was a difference between the O scale, or the double O versus the HO. In the SCARM program, they said they were the same, but yet when I talked to Bill, the track planner, he said they weren't. SCARM didn't offer an HO of that to design the layout in, and that's what I was using. I was told that the Atlas, the frogs are easy to repair if there's anything that needs to be done. It's also easy to swap the switches from a right side to a left side, or an inside outside, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
Like Jim, I haven't soldered anything in years, and so it's the last time I soldered anything was probably 20 years ago, and it was in RC cars, and the only thing I was soldering then was battery packs.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm going to try to use as much flex track as I can and just the turnouts.
Okay. How about you, Jason?
Well, since it was my dad's layout, it was the O gauge 3 rails, and pretty much what it was is we had too much stuff compacted in one area, and that's that's no way to go.
All right. So working on that temporary layout, what have you come out when you go to build your layout that you know you're not going to repeat or try not to repeat?
Well, uh, spread it out a little bit, uh, make more scenic area, and uh, I won't be doing no 5-track mainline. That was
Yeah.
pretty much what it was a 5-track mainline layout,
Uh,
just to run trains around. But it served its purpose, and luckily, by the time my dad decided to tear it down, he knew what he wanted to do was make the layout bigger.
yeah. Yeah. How you doing, JD?
Hey Johnny, how you doing?
Very good. You survived the trip. The question here is, and you kind of qualify for this too, it's for people that have already built one layout. What did you take from the first layout as far as mistakes or learning to the second layout? Because I know you'll be
Uh,
putting your layout back up, but
yeah, I think the major lesson is planning, thinking through what you want to do first before you do it. But goals and objectives were quite different when I started off. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to be in the hobby. It was, let me put something together for my kids to play with it. And that led to the next interest. Oh, I'd like to do this too. And so, it became somewhat haphazard. But the lesson, the big lesson is take your time, plan it out, figure what your objective is, figure out what you really want to put together, what you really like and don't like, sort that out. There's no hurry. I mean, it's, at least for me,
yeah.
take your time and do it right.
What about laying your track? I don't know if you soldered any of your track together. Would you solder all of it, or is there only certain parts that you might solder together, or what?
Yeah, only certain parts because I prefer mine to be mobile, at least enough to be able to take apart if I need to.
All right, so you're talking about maybe soldering up the curves and leaving straight track unsoldered.
Yeah, and if I can use 3-foot straight tracks, I would. The
Yeah,
minimum number of joints that I can achieve, the better off I think I am.
yeah, that's true.
So that would be one of my goals in terms of planning would be minimize the number of connections
Yeah,
and minimize the number of power feeds if I can. Make it as efficient as possible.
yeah, okay. Well, I know Troy's probably the most experienced one here since he's
Yeah.
fourth layout. Troy, is that it?
Yeah, I'm on my 4th layout now.
You want to give us a couple of your experiences on the first layout and what you changed from that to through the other layouts?
Well, the first layout was with Bachman Easy Track. Second layout was with the same track only because I was trying to cut corners. Definitely never again would I ever do something like that, go with the Bachman Easy Track. And it's just my own personal preference. Same thing with Kato Track. I looked at the prices of Kato, and man, that stuff is expensive, and it's just not inside my pocketbook. I could have went out and gotten Flex Track just a lot cheaper. by far. So that's what I ended up going with. On my second layout, I used Atlas and Payco. Atlas on my main line, which was code 80, and then Payco on all sidings and yards. That was my second mistake, to be interchanging the two tracks. It doesn't look bad, providing you're using all Atlas and Payco turnouts. However, on my third layout, I did nothing but spend time working on turnouts all the time, and it got to be quite frustrating. You sit there and think, okay, well, I got this turnout here fixed, and next thing you know, you're running a train through there, and all of a sudden you got another derailment. And it wasn't just with one car. If it was just one car, I'd be able to pull off a piece of rolling stock and check it, but that wasn't the case. The case was with the points and the frogs, and just nothing would work out. Of course, this is N scale, so HO guys, you guys have a lot nicer turnouts than us N scalers do for aftermarket. And so I decided to go ahead and start building all my own turnouts, and I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt for it because it's a long, tedious process, but it's well worth it.
Now I know you talked about and I think you said you've had this experience. I know we've had it out there at the store. So now that you're using the flex track, for curves and all like that, straightaways, what about track buckling? What have you problems you've had and how you cured that?
I actually had quite a lot of problems with my old layout. My old layout, I was soldering everything, soldering up every piece of track together, and that was my biggest mistake. Now what I do is I only solder, because I'm running a Digitrack system, and I actually only solder about a 4 to a 6-inch piece of track onto each end of my turnout. So I got one piece on the diverging route, one on the main, and then one on the points end. The rest of it is all just put together with rail joiners, whether they be insulated or the metal, and I just drop pile of feeder wires. I have not had no problems with that. However, I have noticed that I've been able to go ahead and go back and adjust my track before my scenery. With climate changes and weather changes, this winter will be a little bit more interesting to see how much it's going to grow. Although I do set it in the wintertime, because in the winter it's actually warmer in my basement. But I noticed that, like, now I've actually gained room on everything. My joints have actually shrunk down. And so with that, what I've done was I've actually centered out the tracks. I didn't glue down my rail. That was another big mistake that I did on my third layout, was gluing everything. I actually pin everything on the outside edges of the rails. I don't have nothing going through the ties. They're just holding onto the rail in between ties on the outside of it, so I can go back and adjust. And what I've caught myself doing is actually finding the gaps in them, pulling at the track spikes, and then centering out the rail so it minimizes the gaps. I'm hoping that in doing so, that when everything does start to expand again, it will just go ahead and equal itself back out. Henceforth, when it goes back to shrinking, I'm hoping that it'll be the same amount of gap on both sides. And it's only just a few thousandths of an inch for gaps, but in N scale, that few thousandths, once when it tightens up, I mean, if you're a few thousand, 2 to 3 thousandths too tight, that puts a pretty big kink on your rail. Yeah. That was one of the biggest things. So I've taken my time to sit down and file down every single end on every joint and custom fit everything so that my rails actually sit up nice and tight and that they're square when I'm done. I think that's the biggest thing, because even on corners, I work with microengineering rail, so the microengineering rail, you can't just slide a rail inside and outside of it. It's not like Atlas. So when I go to make my curves, I make sure that the rails are actually square with each other's heads. of the rail.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So when my trains are going across, they're not at a kink or anything. Then I also file down both the insides, outsides of the rails, and then across on the tops of the rails too to go and keep everything smooth.
Dave, I want to interrupt just for
Question for you, Troy. Do you keep a minimum gap between the track joints for expansion purposes at all?
No, my primary track setting time is in the winter time. Now this summer now I've actually laid out my industry area. However, those are all just spur tracks. So those ones should not make a difference because they're a dead-end track. It's not like it's a big giant loop or anything. But now when winter time comes up, I will go ahead and start setting track again because I kind of keep an eye on my heat and my humidity down here in the basement. And once when it starts warming up, then I'll go ahead and start setting again. And I actually set it all tight. Not tight, but let's say if I'm going to go ahead and slide in 2 pieces of rail, and I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yeah.
But I'll actually just go ahead and get it so that when I go and cut it and I file it down, it just barely slides down into place. And I'll file down both the insides, the ends of the rails, and then I'll file down both edges as well, so that when the back flanges come across and the insides right there, it's all nice and smooth transition along with the tops of them. I mean, I know everybody wants to hear that clickety-clack and stuff in there, but in N-scale, you just can't really get away with a lot of that stuff. Once this stuff starts expanding and it starts, growing or moving up or down or anything, that couple of thousandths of an inch can actually go ahead and make it jump up quite a bit. So if you're running steam engines, and you don't have a lot of spring pressure on the pilot trucks, it'll end up derailing it. Especially if the wheel sets are designed for like a code 40 or code 55 rail, it wouldn't take much to go ahead and pop one off coming off on a corner or going through a turnout or set of points or anything like that.
Got a question here from Eric. I'm going to start building my layout soon, and I'm not looking forward to doing the wiring and installing switch motors under the bench work. I feel my knees and back are hurting already. I know what you're talking about there. Anyone have any suggestions to make it easier to work under the layout? I'll go ahead and have a little something to say right now. I'll let y'all in the panel answer too. Out there at the store hobby shop, we built ours so tall that your normal desk chairs that you can raise up and down, we have a bunch of those that people have brought in. The backs were broke. We take the backs off and just have the seat. We can roll under the layout because they are adjustable in height. We can lower it down if it's too high and just sit in the chair and roll around and work on it. I've been to other people's houses, 2 of them here in my area that had open houses, and I noticed they took creepers. If the layout's sitting kind of low, where that desk chair wouldn't work, even at the low setting, they've taken creepers and built the back for them to where they can sit on the creeper and roll up under there, and they still had their back supported, to work on their layouts. Anybody else got any other way of doing it?
No, that's what I did. Mine's a little bit more simpler than that because I don't have no back support, but I just took a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that I had sitting around and an old TB cart that was garbage. I just pulled the wheels off of that and bolted them up onto the piece of plywood, and away I went. A lot of my wiring, like that's done up underneath, because I use tortoise switch machines. I do as much wiring as I can outside of it. I'll drop all the wires up on there, everything for powering up the frogs, everything, before I ever even mount my tortoises. This way here, when I get up underneath there, it's already hanging there. I just make about a 6-inch long lead, and you can use a suitcase connector, or you can solder them, or whatever, make some kind of a plug-in for them, or however it is you want to go ahead and do it. But that's what I did.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea,
And
especially
it,
on setting it up before you go under.
Well, I'm lucky at the bench. I just lay my whole layout on its side.
Yeah, doing modules. Yeah, you can do that. Go watch Barry do that about a year ago when he first started Hangouts. That's what he was doing, working on the club modules, and had to do some rewiring. He brought them back to his house and just turned them up on the side and did his rewiring, mounted some new because he used the servos to operate his turnouts. Hey, Tariq, I just want to haul that real quick. Let you know
hey
I did.
Drake,
Yeah, I stitched one guy pre-wired everything up before he put it in. What he did is glued a bit of half-inch ply, about 3 inches square, under each turnout, and he pre-fitted his servos and everything to that, and just cut a hole in the bench and dropped it down in it. Everything was wired out, and just dropped it in. And then he just filled up the edge of any little gap with the tape before he put his ballast down.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Didn't even think about that till you mentioned it there, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah, I've heard some people are doing that. Just have their turnouts as drop-ins.
That way you can make sure your servos and everything line up perfectly before you fit them.
Yeah, because out there at the store, I was one up under there setting the tortoise machines, and that was no fun trying to set it in the right position, hollering up to the people on top, is it throwing right yet? Yeah. Hey,
yeah,
Andy.
it's funny that you mentioned that, Johnny, because I'm a one-man team over here setting these, and I can't hold it from underneath and be able to be looking up there on top. What I do is I actually use a PCB tie or toothpicks. I'll stick the toothpicks in between the points and center them out. I'll just use a little piece of masking tape just to kind of hold the toothpicks in from popping out on me. And when I go to set the tortoise up underneath, I always take a mental note to which direction the turnout's actually facing. So when I go to set it there, I can kind of at least halfway square it up. And then I just watch that throw rod up underneath there, and I just kind of keep moving it back and forth till I find that happy medium where there's no bend in it whatsoever and it's nice and straight. I'll turn around, I'll use a piece of double-faced tape, and I'll tape it up there, and I'll put a screw up into it to help hold it. I never try to put more than 1 or 2 screws up in there to hold it up into place. Sometimes you got to use 2, because if you use any more than 2, then you might run out of places to go ahead and be able to screw up to. So now I'll just go ahead and get up above and actually check it, and throw the points one direction, throw them back the other direction, make sure it's opening and closing, and then go ahead and zip it all up.
Troy got a question here from Alfonso. What are you doing there? Straightening some pins?
No, this is I'm actually making guardrails for the turnouts. They all got to be pre-bent and stuff, and then I got to sit down and actually file them all off. I got 37 turnouts here to build. I've got pretty much almost all my rail pre-cut and hopefully ready to go. I got lots of filing to do yet. So it's kind of a tedious process, but it's well worth it. It's the wing rails. This one little piece right here, it actually catches the back flange and actually pulls the wheel sets up nice and tight up against the rail, so it's not going to go ahead and trip up over the frog.
Yeah. Now I know you do an N scale like on HO when I've been doing my points and all. I've got a belt sander that I've used to just rough them in, and then I come back with my file and finish them off.
Yeah, code 55 rail is really tough to do that with.
Yeah.
HO code 55 is the same thing as N scale code 55, so it's pretty small. It's not the easiest to go ahead and work with.
Yeah, well, I'm working with just nothing but code 100, so just sitting there trying to file that down with a hand file takes a good while. Then I got thinking about it, and I just pulled the belt sander out and used it to, get it sanded down close to the fixture, and then I finished it off with a file. I'm
Can
just
you use a
starting on
Dremel for
mine,
that?
so I'm kind of doing like what you and Dave have done. What's that, Phil?
So could you use a Dremel for that?
I guess you could if you could get coarse enough sandpaper where it'd cut it kind of quick. You're going to eat up the Dremel sanding drums so fairly quick. They're pretty small. That would be kind of some pretty heavy filing for them. That'd be worth trying to see how long a drum would last.
To be honest, I think one drum would even finish up one rail, to be honest. Not in
What?
code 100 and HO.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to use a sand or anything, you got to be careful too about, because anytime you're sanding, you're going to be generating heat. So you don't want to overheat your rail because that's going to cause you a few little problems there because it changes the stresses in the metal. I mean, I'll sand mine a little bit and, stop, let it cool down a little, touch it with my finger, see how hot it's getting, then sand on a little bit more. Usually it don't take much. I've gotten it pretty close to a fixture, so then I just go ahead and finish it with a file. For those out there viewing, Q&A is up and working. So feel free to type in any questions you might have or comments or, on the conversation. Be glad to answer them or hear them. Oh, Paul put in here a link to Harbor Freight for the Creeper, which, especially with their 20% coupons when they put them out, you can pick up a Creeper for a pretty decent price.
Yeah, that's the one thing I wish I would have done more is actually plan out the layout a little bit better and take more time with it.
What, height-wise and all, or?
Yeah, the height and the depth, because my bottom deck is 4 foot wide and the top deck is 3 foot wide. So when it comes to doing anything on my layout up above, to reach back up over there to the wall is really tough. My layout is strong enough I can stand on it, lay down on it, whatever, but that's kind of besides the point. It's tough to go ahead and make that reach, and it's not easy in the back. I find myself only being able to work up there about a half hour at a time. And because of that reason, I've actually been thinking about rebuilding the layout because of that fact and building a point-to-point or something just for operations.
You got a lot invested in that one right now with time and all. You, maybe about halfway through with laying all the track and everything?
With all the track, I'm actually probably about 3/4 now.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on the yard area now. Then after that, it's just my branch line for track laying. Other than that, the track is pretty much all set, wired up, ready to go. But if I do decide to go ahead and change it, it wouldn't be that bad. I wouldn't be out any rail because I did not glue it. I wouldn't be out any turnouts because they're all custom built. You can do anything with them. You can desolder them and file them down, fix them, whatever it is you want to do to them, shorten them, whatever. So I mean, all my turnouts, it's not a waste of time.
Yeah.
For any of them. So, but I have been seriously thinking about, just keeping the helix, making an upper deck, making a lower deck, and make it just for operations only, because my upper deck is nothing but scenery, and been sitting here thinking about it and maybe contacting Build the Track planner and seeing what he would go ahead and come up with for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if everybody wants to sit here and watch you bend in your guardrails. I forgot I had
No,
you presented.
no, they probably don't want to sit there and watch all that. I'm almost done now, so I know I have more than enough bend tiers. I think I had like a little over 90 of them ready to go, and I think I dropped 2 or 3 of them on the floor, so I only need 72 of them.
Yeah,
Then it's off to filing all the ends on them and make sure that they're all nice and clean.
yeah.
Rail nippers just don't clean up the ends all that great.
No, they don't. For any of the viewers, if you are interested, we do have 2 slots still open on the panel here. If you just want to jump in and be on the panel, you're welcome to come in. Oh, I had a question there, and I can't remember it now. Anybody else got something you want to talk about?
I got a question to ask.
All right.
Anybody familiar with the steamers? I took this apart. Those knuckles go down facing the bottom or facing up?
Up.
Yeah.
So that's where your oil fins go.
So those should be up facing the engine, not towards the ground.
Yeah, because that's where the oil cap normally goes.
That's why I asked. Thanks.
If you have a look at a real loco, you'll find that they're up because they screw the automatic oils into it. So the oil flows downhill.
Now, see there, Andrew does come in handy from time to time.
And we were all beginning to wonder.
Just consider I adjusted my glasses with my middle finger.
Oh, I see the love now.
Yeah, I've built a few real steam engines for boats.
I Phil.
I know a bit about connecting rods and stuff like that. One of my engines was still actually in service, blowing up in Tasmania.
I told you that's how they talk about you when you're not around, Andrew.
That's all right, Jim. I've been called a lot of names, mate.
Just never late for dinner, right?
Yeah, that's right, mate. That will get me angry. It's like the kids, mate. I've got them convinced. If I'm asleep, don't wake me up because I get cranky. Yeah, talk about those hand laden points you're doing there. Is there any drawbacks to them?
What do you mean?
Well, if you come across any problems?
Disadvantages.
Yeah, it hurts the fingers by the time you're done doing a large quantity of them. Fingers get a little bit sore and beat up. That's about it. Other than that, these turnouts run flawlessly when you're done. And even if you screwed up on something, which I have done, I had as a matter of fact, over here in my industry section, I had set a frog too tight. I don't know how I didn't notice it, but I never did. And in order to go ahead and fix it, I was able to go ahead and adjust just the outside rails just a touch, and the wing rails there on the inside by the frog. It was a lousy 5-minute fix. It took longer for the solder iron to go ahead and heat up than it did to go ahead and fix it. Once when that was done, they're flawless. There is no going back and reworking them unless you screwed up when you're building them inside the jig or whatever. You forgot to do something. It's all human error from that point. But once when they are all assembled, there is no going back. This is why I chose to go ahead and go with custom built turnouts after my old layout and spending years of trying to fix turnouts that there was just no fixing and wasting money, spending anywhere between $14. Well, I think the cheapest turnout was about $12, all the way up to 25 to $26 for a turnout, and sitting there working on them, and you're just wasting your time and your money. The overall price per turnout that I'm building right now is I'm probably looking at about right around $7 a turnout, maybe $8 plus a little bit of time.
Yeah, so that's the problem I have at the moment. My layout I have at the moment, it's outside, all turn out to pico, and of course they've oxidised. They get their powers from the physically making a switch contact. And because they oxidise, you don't get the electrical contact, so things die halfway across the turnout.
You know, that's one of the pros to one of these turnouts, is that being that everything is soldered on with PCB boards and all your gaps are cut, even when you're painting up all your rail, you do not have to mask anything off. You just go ahead and you airbrush it on there, and you're done. I mean, everything is all connected with a PCB tie, and there's power going through everything. I mean, even on the regular turnout, the points are all connected. You know, the only thing that's not connected because you're going to insulate it is the frogs. You got to cut out the frogs so you don't create a short circuit. I myself, I power up all my frogs because I got, you know, some short locos and stuff, that some 44 tons and some 70-ton diesels and stuff that, you know, might have a little bit of problems rolling through there. So I just chose just to go and power up everything and be done with it. If I'm going to do it, I might as well go and do it all and do it right to begin with, rather than playing around and not doing it. I'm using a tortoise switch machine. The options are all there. What's just a little bit of wire.
Yeah. Another thing, Andrew, the first turnout that I built in the Fast Tracks jig is a number 6. Now I'm using HO and it's code 100. If you're looking at the turnout where you're coming into it, like you're coming into the frog, right there about the last 1 inch of the stock rail, outside rail, I did not notice it until after I built it. It was actually twisted. You know, instead of standing straight up, it's twisted off to the side a little bit. How that happened, I don't know. But the thing of it was being built in that fixture, and it was still engaged because I could take and roll my test trucks through there. They rolled right through it just fine. You know, there was no problem with it at all. It's just that I had happened to turn that switch and was looking down the rail, and that's how I saw the twist in it. It was an easy fix. I just went back. I had 2 PC ties that it was soldered to. I just went in and desoldered those, you know, heated them up and pushed down on the rail and, you know, twisted it back straight, and then just let that solder re-harden, and it works just fine. Go ahead, Troy.
The problem is that you had there. This is HO right here. I'm trying to see if I can get my camera to focus here. Come on.
That'd be too close.
Yeah, it should focus. And for some reason here it's not. There we go. Oh, it was.
Yeah, being close like that, any slight movement will throw it off.
Yeah, the problem is that right here at the base part of the rail, Johnny, what a lot of people do when they go to bend that rail, they're putting their finger across the whole side of it to try to bend it with their finger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And the way to do that is you actually lay your fingernail at the actual base of the rail and use your fingernail at the base of the rail, so you're bending the base and not the top of the rail. That's what creates that bend. Even an N scale with some of my very first turnouts, they're twisted also, but yet they still work flawlessly.
Yeah. Okay.
I just went ahead and ran them, but I learned that if you make your bend at the base of the rail, you won't quite eliminate that
twist, but you'll
that
get most of
twist,
it out.
yeah, it'll end up getting quite a bit straighter,
Yeah. Okay.
where it'll actually lay flat. Because even in N scale, and Code 55 is a pretty small rail, and I notice that when I go to start soldering it up, I'll notice how it sits on the PCB ties, that it's not quite square.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing that I have come up with in my trials and errors of building turnouts and everything else.
Yeah, tomorrow when I was telling you the better, I'm going up to buy the timber for me, start my next layout. So, I'll put my order in for my fast track kit to start with.
Yeah.
The hard part about it is I can get HO's fast track stuff in Australia, but the guy won't get me in N scale, so I've got to get it myself.
Huh.
And the postage is expensive.
Yeah, and it's coming up out of Canada too if you're ordering from Fast Tracks.
Well, if I can get it direct from Canada, it's cheaper.
Yeah, the shipping is,
Yeah, and I don't have to pay import duty.
but the rail still costs you a little more.
Yeah, the easiest way to go ahead and buy it, and I found it actually cheaper on model train stuff, to go ahead and buy it in the bulk. I think minimum order is 66 pieces, I think. I actually ordered a larger quantity and got a better deal going through model train stuff than I did through Fast Tracks for my rail.
Yeah. Now it's
I
still
think
micro-engineering track though, right?
yeah, it's all microengineering track. And which I love it because, there's a lot of myths about using the rail joiners and stuff as well, and everybody was using the Atlas or the Payco rail joiners on them. I found that, yes, you can use microengineering rail joiners. They are tight for a reason. That's to go ahead and create good conductivity without having to worry about soldering. The key to doing that is to go ahead and file down the base of the rail. And you're just going to go and run your file across the actual end of the rail, parallel with the rail on both sides of it. Then you deburr at the bottom of it, and then that rail joiner will slide right up on there with no problems.
I had heard that guys were using N-scale rail joiners for HO to get tight fits. Is that a myth or is that truth?
That is truth.
Oh,
Truth.
I believe it's the Atlas rail joiners, Code 80 rail joiners. Is that correct, Jim?
Yeah, here's the skinny on that. Atlas now makes a universal rail joiner that's good for both Code 83 and Code 100.
Yep.
And those fit looser on the 83 than the original track joiners specifically made for an 83. So the guys started using the N-scale rail joiners for the Code 83 because they, of course, obviously they definitely fit tighter, and they are smaller. They look a little better on there. But if you're gluing your track down or doing something with your track or whatever, I don't think it really matters that much of a difference. I started using them, and it was kind of a pain in the butt, and since I was nailing every so many places I was putting a little track spike down or nail spike down, I went back to the Universal 83 Code 100 rail joiners and sold all my end scales to another modeler friend, or actually I gave them to him. Another modeler friend who wanted to try it out, and he really liked it. So.
Yeah, it seems like to me though, if you're using a tight rail joint and you're trying to keep a little bit of a gap in there for your expansion and contraction, that would kind of make it a little tougher for it to track to move back and forth.
Well, no, metal expansion's going to move. You know that, John. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. They're not welded together. It's still a slip joint. It's just a little bit tighter of a slip joint than like you say, the guys started using it when, from what I understand, they started using it when Atlas come out with the Universal 83-100 joiners.
Yeah.
And they were sloppy. But like I said, I didn't worry about it. I just did it.
Yeah, that
How
was
are they with code 100 though?
Pardon?
How are they with code 100?
Well, I don't know because I've got all 83.
It'd be
But
tighter
right.
on 100.
Probably. And they work fine on my 83. Once you've got your track down, those rails joiners really just kind of hold things in alignment a little bit for you. So, I mean, that's the only work they do. If I'm wrong, someone can correct me, but because I'm the new guy, I've only been doing this for 6 months. 8 months, 6 months, 8 months.
I got a question here from Paul. What tools/methods can be used on flex track to get a nice flowing curve?
Well, with flex track, you don't need a tool because if you use an Atlas, let me put that in Atlas, you don't need tools. And I'll stop there and let everybody else go from there.
I think he's probably talking about how to keep a nice radius going around as you're laying the flex track down. I know they do make tools, radius tools. They're flat pieces of metal, and you can buy them in whatever radius, pretty much whatever radius you want, 18, 20, 22, 24. Like it goes up to 28, fits in between the rails. So as you're laying the flex, you're pushing that through. It sits right between the rails. So that way you can maintain that specific radius that you want. I guess another way would be is what we did at the store, laying out the track on the layout. We took a piece of masonite 4x8 sheet and a yardstick with holes drilled on every 1-inch mark, and set a pin right there near the corner. And we started drawing radiuses out and writing on there what radius was, and then we cut them out. As we were laying the track, we put those radiuses up there to kind of help keep that radius in the track.
Yeah, I can't think of the company's name. They got some laser cut wood ones.
Fast Tracks has some.
Is it Fast Tracks that has it? Yeah, I've seen those. Again, I cheated what was sectional, only because I doubted my abilities. Probably I could have done it if I wanted to try hard enough, I guess. But I just went with the sectionals, and I did solder all my sectionals for my quarter curves.
Well, you actually got enough room in between the ties, so if you got your center line already drawn on your bench work, you can pretty well follow that center line as you lay the track down. Well, when you put your court down, because you have to put it down in 2 halves, you can see the division there, and you just lay your track on top and follow it, keep that in the center between the rails. You'll pretty well hold a good curve right there.
Hey, Troy.
Yes, sir.
One night during one of the shows, you had a small tool that had notches in it, the width of the rail, and you were bending track with that. What was that?
That is a company. I'm trying to think of the name of the company now. That actually makes them. You can find them at Model Train Stuff. They have them in N scale and HO. It's a complete set. It comes with a ballast spreader, a track alignment tool, which is made for bending it. They're all great. I'm sorry, I really can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. And then there's another one that has 2 little notches in the side of it for soldering. I've never used that. I always use a quarter on there. It's so much easier. But yeah, they're a really nice tool. The ballast spreader I have not tried, so I cannot tell you if it even works or not. I think that this is the tool that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, this right here works really good. Getting on over to track alignment tools and stuff. A ribbon rail, I myself would never go out and buy wood, like what Fast Tracks has. I don't think that they're strong enough. I believe these ones right here are made by Ribbon Rail. This is a 22-inch radius curve, and this right here is obviously a straight piece. And they just fit right on. They come in HO and N scale. They come in all different radiuses. And you just go ahead and snap your track up inside of it, and you got your radius, and you just go ahead and just take it and slide it on down, whatever. But now you can see that that track right there has a 22-inch radius. And if you wanted to straighten it out, you just stick it in your straight stick and then bend it straight. These right here work good. The easiest way to go ahead and come up with your track center lines is make yourself a homemade jig, as I have done here. It's just a stick with a bunch of holes in there. They are all marked out. This one here goes from 24 inches all the way down to 8 inches. What I've actually done though, see if I can go and get this into camera here, is that when I stick in my pencil, like this one right here is actually broken off, I'll actually go ahead and measure from the tip of the pencil to the tip of the screw. This right here is for a 10-inch radius, and it's exactly 10 inches on there. But that's how I make my center lines, and then I use cork for my road bed, and the cork also gets split up in half. So when you glue down your cork, you'll still have a center line for your track, and then you can just go ahead and lay your track accordingly, going ahead and making all your radiuses just by using and drawing up your track plans up, you know, with a homemade jig. I didn't spend nothing on this. It's just a piece that was laying around. Maybe a dime for a sheetrock screw is all I have invested into it, and just a little bit of time of, you know, getting all the holes that were centered out and true to. And it doesn't matter which side you actually go ahead and drill it on, even if the holes aren't straight, like these are here not straight, as long as they're centered. They don't have to be centered on the stick. They got to be centered from the tip of the screw to that point. I just use a small drill bit first, drill the hole, and then go accordingly. Even my helix, I built the helix with this stick also, making all my measurements. These 3 circles right here is my outside cut line, my inside cut line, and then my track center line. Everything is 2 inches for a total of 4 inches for my actual helix. And when I got done drawing up my half a circle, if you notice I have arrows sitting up over here. Those arrows are my marks. When I get done drawing it up, my circle, I'll take my pencil and I'll just draw a line right there. That would be my cut line. So I got a nice straight line every single time. I always use the same side of the stick when I was marking out my cut lines on everything. So here everything's all centered.
Yeah, you're marking your cut line before you pick that up, so your screw stays in the center point, right?
Yeah, the screw's always inside the center point. And what I do is when I place this right here down there in the plywood, I would actually circle it, put a circle right where the screw was, because you're going to keep moving it around and moving it around and moving it around. So I always put a circle in there so I knew which points there were in case if I ever had to go back and darken up a line or anything else before I start cutting everything.
Yeah, but I meant once you've done your 2 outside and inside lines, before you take your Dremel up, you always mark your cut lines.
Yeah, I marked the inside, outside, and track center and the cut line all the same time.
Yeah, before.
And even because I was using, I found that a Bic pen works great. Because they'll fit inside, they'll make it fit nice and tight, and you can kind of move them just a little bit inside the hole to go ahead and get it so that your measurements come out with the center of the screw tip. Because you can take a pencil and be able to stick a pencil in there and be able to wobble it back and forth, but you can manipulate it to go and get it nice and tight, or be able to hold it in one direction so it stays true the entire time that you make out that circle.
Yeah. Real fast, Dave had put up here, that was fast track sweepstakes for, curves, setting your
Yes,
races. And also, Dude has joined us, and he put up there real quick that he has no camera. He's just not being special. Incognito.
he's hiding.
I see that, Troy. You can't see me, but I can see you.
That's okay. I don't mind.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're just joining the show, Dude.
Yeah, I wanted to come in and see what Troy was doing.
All right. Well, the question was if you've built your first layout, now you're on your second, third, or fourth. What issues or problems did you have with your tracks on the first one? Mistakes that you corrected, and what did you do to keep from doing it again on your next layout? Plus, we've been talking a little bit about this and that too. But I tell you what, while I've got the mic, let me get over here. Uh, uh, I must like you, Night Truck. I keep leaving you in screen share.
I think I probably got the most boring job around. I don't think it's very interesting to say the least.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and do the midpoint show because we did start just a few minutes late anyway. Try and give some people time to get in and get set up, get going. Uh, Thursday night hangouts are the proud sponsor of the YouTube Mile Builders, the EMAG, and the YouTube Mile Builders live show. The website is youtubemilebuilders.com. You can go to that website. You will get the schedules for when the live shows are, which are normally about the third Saturday of each month. You also see when the EMAG is coming out, and I'm going to have to say I apologize, JD. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I think it's next month. We're supposed to be getting another EMAG out. And you can also sign up for notification by email when the EMAG comes out. You get an automatic mailing, so you can go download the PDF file and read the EMAG. We also have the YouTube Mile Builders Big Build Contest, building a mile railroad structure. And that is hosted by Eric Hall. And he's from IMRRO, all caps, COM, lowercase. You can also go to youtubemilebuilders.com, and there is a place there that you can see what the rules and regulations are and how to post your videos on your building. You need at least 3 videos for that. So that concludes tonight's midpoint public announcement. So, okay, what am I doing here? Guess thing wasn't working right for me. So we're back to our regular program show.
You know, I'd like to add that for those of you who are interested in building turnouts, you don't necessarily have to do everything it is here that I'm doing. I use the rail nippers to go ahead and cut all this stuff. And what I'm actually doing is taking off the end that the rail nippers leave on. To me, it gives it a cleaner look. It doesn't take all that long, just time consuming, I guess. But even when I'm laying track, I will file down all my ends so they're nice and square and smooth. It's just a look that I'm after. You don't necessarily have to go ahead and do up all that either. So don't be afraid that, oh my gosh, I got to do up all that. That looks like a lot of work. Well, you don't have to do this. You could actually just install it just the way it is. You go on and say heck with it. It's no big deal.
Well, I know for HO rail, the rail nippers do leave a little bit of a burr in there that you need to really hit with the file so that your rail joiners will fit on there good.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. To go ahead, when the rail nippers actually cut the head of the rail, and I don't know about HO scale. I haven't tried cutting HO scale track with the rail nippers, but even at the bottom of the rail, where the tie actually sits, it'll leave a burr up underneath there. I noticed
Yeah.
if you take a file right there at the bottom of it, just a little bit, and then you hit the base of the rail on both sides of it and give it just a little bit of an angle, you know, and be able to pull it down, the rail joint will be able to hit it and be able to slide up in there without having any problems at all.
Hmm.
Just a couple of swipes. I do this on, that's the exact same thing as what I do on my Code 55 to go and get my microengineering rail spikes on there, and they slide right up on there with no problems once you pull off all them burrs and give it just a little bit of a bevel.
Yeah, because rail nippers to cut it straight on one side, but the other side will have a little bit of an angle to it. So
And even the straight side has that little bit of burr. I just kind of kiss the rail head, just touch it with my file. So I pull both of the rail heads down a little bit. So there's a very, very, very small V where the rail heads meet, and that keeps your rolling stock from kind of picking that point as it comes across the rail joints as well. And you just barely want to kiss them. You don't want to take it to where it's even visible, but just barely knock the corner off the top of the rail head too. Makes it smoother.
I just
uh-oh.
file them all down myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I file all the way around the rail. I do too.
What do you got up there, dude?
Well, if you would put it up on the screen so everybody can see it all, they'll be able to see it better probably.
Well, how much you gonna pay me?
50 cents.
I was hoping for 75.
Well, I'm only going to go and give you my 2 cents worth, Johnny.
Yeah.
That's just a rough draft of what I'm going to do in the room next to where that peninsula is up there, how the door swings. That's where my helix is. Here, I'll show you.
I was fixing to say, was this the room where the helix is?
Yeah. See, that's what my layout looks like in the helix, or with the helix on it, where the helix is at. And see, outside the door, the helix will be moved. I've got an area where I'm going to put it. So this peninsula that's right here will go up a little bit further, but I'm just going to swing those tracks out in and around the door there. And then put a lift out probably right in here somewhere.
The lift out be for what?
To go into the layout.
Oh, okay.
I don't have the rest. This is just I just wanted to share it.
Hmm.
But that's my upper deck, and then that's my lower deck.
Yeah.
But not now, because that's going to change. Because now where the yard goes through the wall, I'm going to be able to run it down a little bit further. I'll be able to put more cars in there. And then the upper deck will do the same thing. I'm just going to run it out into that room, only up against the wall, though it won't have no peninsula on it or anything like that. And I can extend my guard that I have for it as well.
So the upper deck's just pretty much going to be a runaround then.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one pass through. The way I plan, you won't be able to just put a train up on the upper deck and just run it around. You're not going to be able to do that. The way the elevation is going to be of the track. So once you go up there, you get your next job or transfer people or whatever, and then you grab another job and pull it down to the lower deck. So that's what I got planned.
That'll look cool.
Paul has posted another question here. It was mentioned earlier about steam locos being light on the front trucks causing derails. How is that fixed?
Lead weights. Oh, I read that today, anyways.
Yeah. I had a loco long years ago. Well, actually, back when I was growing up, the steam locomotive, the front trucks kept popping up, turning sideways and derailing it, and turned out the spring that was supposed to hold the truck on the rail was just too weak, and replaced it with a stronger spring. It worked out just fine.
Yeah, you can either take and stretch out the original spring. I myself, I've actually added, like what Jim said, lead weight up underneath on the inside of it, just paint it black so you can't really see it. And one of the biggest things, and a lot of people don't even think about checking, is the actual wheels themselves. Are the wheel sets in spec up there in the front trucks? I've seen it in N scale and HO scale where them wheels will not fit inside of an NMRA gauge because they're wider than what they're supposed to be. So when it goes through a set of points, it's actually binding, and the rail heads actually pinch them right on out, so they ride up on top of the rails till they eventually just pop right on out. So it can be a various amount of things there, whether it's the weight or not having a spring pressure or the wheel sets.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the front wheels being out of spec.
Yeah, even the trailing wheels will do that. I've noticed that, like I said, even in N scale, Bachmann is really bad in N scale for their wheel flanges to be not in spec at all. All their Challengers, the Bachmann Spectrum Challengers in N scale, they're horrible. They're either too tight or they're too loose on their tolerances. There's no happy medium with them at all.
All right, now to adjust that, can you move one or both the wheels on the axle, or how would you adjust it?
You actually have to go ahead and get a gear puller. The only company that I have found that actually has one is Micromark for the HO scale, which will work on N scale. I have talked to another gentleman, and that's what he has to do. So in order to go ahead and spread it, that's what you have to do. You have to go and get one of them pullers so it rides into the center part of the axle to go ahead and spread it if it's too narrow. Now, if it's too wide, you actually have to press them back on. So you're going to be doing the opposite. Now, in order to go ahead and do that, I used a couple of vices with a piece of steel that had a hole drilled through it. And you got to do it on both sides at the same time because one side is not just going to go ahead and give. It's going to give at the weakest point first. So if one set happens to go in too far, then that means you have to go in there with the gear puller and pull the other side back out again. Because you will not go ahead and get just one side in. You need to work both sides at the same time in order to go ahead and get them centered out. And sometimes you have to recenter the axle on the gear itself that's inside of there. It's kind of a pain in the butt process to go ahead and do. I've seen it done. I know that it can be done. After having this gentleman show me how to do it, it's actually pretty easy. It's just a little bit time consuming, but it's well worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Well, keep a good running engine. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, N scale is really finicky and picky, so if it's not right, it's going to be skipping out and everything else.
Yeah, I do like to watch the steam engines running. Don't like watching them derail or anything, but I have to sit there, keep re-railing them, keep them going.
And they used to be notoriously bad. Steam locomotives used to be impossible to run, but the modern iteration of steam locomotives from some of the vendors, Bachmann included, Bachmann has some real winners and some real losers. The B&O EM1 gets really good regards from Bachmann, but the Berkshire from Bachmann gets really bad reviews for those same things. And the Broadway Limited stuff is really good, but 10 years ago, steam locomotives from 10 years ago were finicky. They were rough. Hardly right.
I'm actually trying to find my NMRA gauge right now. I just took out a Bachmann Spectrum loco here. This is a 10-wheeler, a 460, and I'm just going to go ahead and check it really quick because I'm just curious because I've never checked this one. Because that's another thing too. If you do decide to go ahead and go with custom-built turnouts, everything's all within spec. There is no forgiveness in a custom-built turnout. Your engines need to, your engines need to be perfect and tip-top shape.
Yeah.
For all the wheel sets.
Troy, readjust the camera. Rather not be seeing you here. There you go.
Now the very first set of wheel sets on the front trucks for the pilots are on. The next set is too narrow. The drivers, first set of drivers are too narrow. Second set of drivers are right on. And the third set of drivers are right on. So this one right here probably wouldn't be riding up, but I'd probably be pinching going up in through the frog though, causing it to go ahead and derail with the front pilots. That's a bad part of
the coal car.
The coal car, I never did check that, but I'm sure it's probably that right there is probably on. Okay, maybe not. The coal car is way too tight on the tender on the first one. Second one is too tight. Third one is too tight. And the fourth one is too tight.
Yeah.
They all need to be loosened up. That's just part of Bachmann for you.
How was the Shay that you got back? It pretty good on this wheel sets.
You know, I never checked it. I've only ran that thing one time for maybe 3 minutes, and that was about it. I never ended up checking them. That was an Atlas, though. Now I've got a Bachmann, the 210-2. Those ones are right on the money. I have not. I just picked up another one, another 210-2. This one has never been out. It's never been test run, nothing yet, so I'll go ahead and check these ones. My other one is right on the money. It was perfect. Front set's good on the pilot. Now this pilot right here, there is no springs in there. It's just free floating, but there is a weight in there of some sort. First set of drivers, those ones are right on. Second set here is just a touch bit too tight. There is nothing here for back flange on the third set because of the way that they're built to go in the corner. Fourth one, could be a little bit looser. It fits, but that right there is good. Rear truck, good. This tender, that one right there is good. That one's good. This one here is a little too tight. And that one right there is good. So overall, there's only 2 sets of wheel sets really that need to be messed with on this one. They're just a little touch bit too tight.
So it'd still probably go through the turnouts without a whole lot of difficulty then maybe.
Yeah, this one here probably would.
And like you said, commercial turnouts are built with a lot of slop in them, so they will work if things are too narrow because they have big wide gaps in them. But if you build your turnouts to NMRA spec, you build them tight, then you don't have a lot of room to play. So if it's very tight at all, it won't work. At least in HO scale, it won't.
Yeah.
That's the beauty.
What's that, Dave? Because you were coming in real loud and kind of garbled.
That's the beauty. The locomotive that Troy's showing, that's the beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sharp looking. This one right here's a DM and IR, but it's going to get a whole new paint scheme to it.
What? Gonna make it a Great Northern or something?
No, this right here will be a PNC for the Pacific North Central. And of course, they're all going to get new decoders put up inside of them. The Bachmann decoders, I don't know what kind of decoder they actually put up inside of them, but they're junk.
That one Bachmann engine, I've got a diesel engine. Donnie was telling me that they use the lens, which is a real cheap one, because mine did the same as several other people were talking about. It started acting up after about a year. And Donnie told me what, like I put wasn't a Tsunami. Anyway, it's another decoder he told me to put in there. Boy, that thing runs a whole lot better than it did brand new. The only thing I got to do is just go in and adjust a few of the CVs because he wants to kind of jump on start off.
Yeah, the Bachmann decoders are real simple, so it would make sense they're lens. They don't have back EMF or any of that stuff. So I've got a series of PAs, Alcos from Bachmann, and they're not decoders. And they don't have back EMF. They don't have all those features. So I'm not sure which one I'll put in it. But I've got to put a new decoder in them. Probably Lock Sound. Lock Sound has really, really nice Alco sound effect. And they have really good back EMF support. So good slow speed.
Yeah, it seemed like I did have a lot more adjustments in this decoder too than what I had in that lens.
Yeah, they're really bad. And the missing back EMF is just the killer thing there. I mean, losing back EMF is no way. I'm not giving that up.
Yeah.
Now here I've got a 44 tonner and a 70 ton switcher, and these both run like crap. If there is anything at all, it takes so long for these things right here to power up that there's something there with the decoder that they stumble way too bad. I can put these right here onto just a regular piece on the layout, and they will just sit there and stumble and stumble and stumble, trying to go and get through anything. Where I can throw on another loco with a different decoder up in there, and they purr like a kitten.
And you really need to keep alive for those too, because they struggle with turnouts and dead spots and dirty track. Keep alive will really make a 44 tonner run a lot better. They just don't have the surface area. They don't have the number of wheels to give you a good electrical contact.
Well, that's the problem, because it's N scale. I don't think you can even get a keep alive inside of one of these.
Yeah, maybe not.
The keep alive is probably bigger than a loco.
They're about the size of a pencil eraser. The new ones I've seen they're pretty small, but you don't have much room, so you'd have to mill out weight or something probably.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Bob.
Good. Better late than never, huh?
Hey, Bob.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I was.
What about Bob?
I was
Baby
also,
steps.
Troy, I was also going to ask earlier, but now would be a good time. Do you have any visitors, anything recently to your layout?
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, I was there.
He doesn't sound too happy about it, though.
Well, there's just so much we could have done, and I just felt like I didn't have a whole lot of time. But
Yeah, I wish I would have had more preparation time. I would have had a lot more done and everything else. I mean, I was still working on the layout when you showed up.
yeah,
Yeah. I was pushing, trying to go and get stuff done, and that's where I made some mistakes on the layout. And oh well, crap happens.
Well, it was usable, and that was great. You know, it was more than I've got at home. I don't have a Helix yet. Just don't let my wife hear that.
Is that her standing behind you?
No,
Dun, dun, dun.
that's a ladder. No, she's asleep. Thank goodness. Yeah.
There's a reason for you wearing them headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Keep her from hearing.
Oh, yeah. So what's the main subject tonight? Anything?
Well, we started out with what mistakes you made on your first layout and how you corrected them, when building your second, third, fourth, fifth layout. Or if you're still in the first, what did you do to correct them? So if you got something you'd like to put in there, go right ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, my first mistake was I was too young. First of all, and I started off with HO, Tycho, back in the 70s. And, I just wanted to get in there real fast and get a layout going, Just had regular Atlas track. I had this big dream. I wanted to put a pond with real water in the middle of my layout.
Yeah.
So
I tried real water. That's horrible.
Yeah. So what I did was I said, I'm going to cut out this pond. I'm just going to cut out this shape in my tabletop. I'm going to drill 5 or 6 holes into the edge, and then the same amount on roughly the same spot where I cut it out at. And then I tied twine between that and the board I'd cut out, so it just sort of hang down from the string. And then I taped like a garbage bag, and I stapled it, tried gluing it down, and everything else. And I think I used maybe 3 or 4 different layers of garbage bag on there just to make sure it never leaked. And then I poured real water in there. So I was like, I thought that was pretty cool for a while. Until it got really dirty.
Yeah.
I had no way to clean it out. I had to climb up onto the table, make a mess. And all I did was I had a 4x8 sheet of plywood with, I think, 6 2x4s nailed through the top or on the edges
Yeah.
to hold the thing up. So, yeah, that was just quick, get it done. I look back at it going, yeah, I learned a lot. Don't do that.
What about your track work, especially now what you're doing on your end scale? You've had any problems that you've had to go back and rework?
Well, I've got a problem that I'm going to have to redo a whole section corner piece in the bedroom because the board was kind of warped. And so I thought, okay, I can live with it warped. I'll just fill in underneath there and raise up the track because it kind of goes up a little bit and then it kind of dips down. And so I was just going to build up underneath the track. And that sort of worked for a little bit, but it's not good enough. I can run one engine across there, but if I'm pulling something behind it, it decouples it right away.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to have to redo that. So I'll probably, instead of use I bought this laminated panels from Menards, and they're the right thickness, but they warp really easy. So I'm probably going to end up going and get some 3/4 inch plywood and just make it out of that, make it nice and flat, and that ain't going to warp. So it'll just look different.
Thank you, Phil.
So that's one of the things I got to repair.
Yeah. Well, real tracks never run flat all the time anyway. Why not just sand both sides down where it's more of a gradual into the dip so it doesn't uncouple the cars? That way you train to actually take a dip like a real track.
Well, because the track that's coming into it starts rising up on an incline, and then
Well,
I have
that's what I
to
mean. You'll
level
sand,
back down.
you'll sand that down.
Yeah, but I have to lower the track a lot, so the whole thing is just uneven completely.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of what is it? Planing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, models are a lot less forgiving, and we try to recreating bad track work and track work that makes your locomotives dip like the prototype. That's really, really hard. You really need doggone near perfect for models.
Yep.
Couplers are so small, and one thing that I always try to repeat to people is that we have couplers and locomotives and track work and equipment that's scaled 1 to 1/60th or 1 to 1 to 87, but we're still dealing with 1 to 1 gravity and 1 to 1 friction and 1 to 1 all those things. So there's some constraints, and it has to be a lot closer to perfect than the prototype can get away with. They can have a lot more slop because the stuff's heavy, big.
Yeah. And you can take a lot of movement left and right, up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's something I'm going to have to address at some point here. Especially when I get that other room finished up. I'll have a full loop, so I better have it right.
I got a question here from Paul. And that is, what is the minimum radius curve for a 6-wheel loco? And he's got 19. I know Paul's doing HOs, so.
I would say 22 as a minimum, and anything you can go bigger, but if you're going to use 6 wheels, 22. You can also file the flange off the center set of wheels, making it effectively a 4-wheel locomotive as far as trucks are concerned, and get steeper radius. As I know I've done that on layouts years ago, is file the flange off with a Dremel rotary tool. But if you want to run 6 axles and all 6 are flanged, consider 22 as a minimum.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. 22 or 24 inch radius.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the end scale. You got any ideas on that, Bob?
Well, you definitely can go lower than 22 inches. I've got a DD40X with 8 axles, and I'm running on 18-inch. I can actually run it down to probably easily 14 or 15.
Okay.
Somewhere. It'll look odd, but it'll work. But yeah, it's safer to go up there at least around 15 for 6-axle. You can really go down to 11. They will work on it, but it's.
Yeah, I was going to say 11 as a minimum in N-scale, but for 6 axles too. But one of the things that N-scale lets you do is have wider radiuses, and in N-scale you should probably never have the radius problems that we have in the larger scales. It's just too easy to throw a 15 or 16-inch radius at the problem and make things look better. And I would, at 22 being a minimum, it's not at all ideal in HO scale. It's ugly. I would say you want to go, if you're building any railroad that's larger than a 4x8 sheet of plywood, set your minimum radius to something more like 26 as a minimum, 26, 27, minimum, everywhere.
Yeah, that's like N scale. I feel that 22 inches is a good radius for main lines and N scale, especially if you're running like longer cars and stuff, like big passenger cars, or them Trinity cars and stuff like that. Anything that's long, otherwise they just don't look right going through the corners and stuff.
Yeah.
Even an 18. I mean, they'll handle the 18-inch. They'll handle smaller even, but they don't look right. Everything's kind of. They start squaring off as they start coming up around the corners. Instead of being nice and smooth, they start squaring off.
Yeah, because you got the car overhanging. The center of the car is going to overhang the outside or the inside of the curb, depending on which direction it's going in.
Well, you
Yep.
have to make
You,
compromises. So, it's a in HO scale, if you're going to run 80-foot modern equipment or passenger cars, in my case, anything much under 30, you have to make compromises. You have to use longer couplers. You have to not let the diaphragms meet and touch, so the equipment doesn't look good. If you want passenger equipment or 80-foot equipment like auto racks or something, if you want those to look good, you're going to need a 30-inch radius to make them look good, to be able to use close couplers and all that jazz.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, on tighter curves too, if you got the couplers mounted to the trucks, you're going to derail. It's going to pull the truck around as it goes.
Yeah, especially with a longer locomotive. You know, that was one thing I was looking at when Bob came over. He had that DD40
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it was.
TDA 40X.
Yeah, so I was really looking at that with the couplers on there with the 40-foot car and how I was pulling and how I was actually tracking on my radius at 22-inch. And there was some overhang there, but it wasn't bad. Primarily that right there should be on probably 24-inch radius. But the tighter the radius is with a longer locomotive like that, the couplers will automatically, with a truck-mounted coupler on the cars, they'll actually go ahead and pick up them wheel sets and bind them and derail that first car right back behind the locomotive because there's no movement there.
And I would say, and I'm sure the N-scale guys will agree too, one thing you absolutely unequivocally want to do is get rid of truck-mounted couplers, period. On everything,
Yes.
all the time, no matter what, one of the first things you want to do is body-mounted as a requirement.
Yes, body mount is the only way to go, especially when you start shoving cars. When you start shoving cars, to shove 4 or 5 cars in N scale, you can go ahead and do it. You can shove more, but if you look at that first car right next to the locomotive as you start shoving, it's going to try to go ahead and pivot because you're putting the weight on the truck, not on the boxcar. So if you have a body mount coupler, the trucks are free floating. You're only pushing the boxcar itself. You're not pushing the trucks. So the trucks are able to go ahead and be able to follow the radius of the curves going through the turnouts and everything else. I've had a big oops here last year. Because I didn't have my lower level done, I could only run on the upper level, and I kept on wanting to go and run, so I'd run the train around through the reverse loop down by the helix, and I'd back the train all the way back up again and do it again. And I come around the one section, and well, it's no fun going ahead and dropping 15 cars, 5.5 feet down to the floor and having parts and wheel sets going all over the place. And I knew what the culprit was, and it was because I didn't have the body mount couplers on there. So since then, I've made a very wise investment on buying body mount couplers. I just have to start working on them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you do that, Troy, or anyone else, if you're going to body mount your couplers, are you going to have to change the length of those couplers?
Some couplers you'll have to, but I try to get them as close to the car as possible with everything.
Mm-hmm.
I use the short shank couplers, and that's another decision factor is your layout as far as what couplers you're going to run with. Because if you have a tight radius curve, let's say if you're an N-scale guy and you're running 14-inch or 8 or smaller curves, even at 16-inch, you'd probably want to run a medium or a long shank coupler to go ahead and keep that binding effect, so you're not going to derail that first car that's back behind there. If you have a nice loose radius curve like what I have, you can run with the short shank couplers and be able to go and get away with it. I'm trying to see if I have any here that are on the layout that I've actually completed.
Well, a little something into the original question about minimum radiuses. A lot of it's got to depend on how much room you've got. Now, I had, with what I'm doing, I couldn't do anything larger than 26. I believe that's what it was. No, 24. So I had to resign to the fact that I wasn't gonna. I would run the six axle diesel, run on it fine, but I wasn't going to go with try to go anything longer than a 50-foot boxcar with it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, a lot of it depends on how much room you've got on what kind of radiuses you can use.
Oh yeah, no question. It has to fit. It doesn't matter if you have all the standards in the world if they don't fit in the room. And if you don't have enough room for enough radius, then you probably have to go down in scale, or like you did, you have to go down in what your objective is. If you want to run passenger trains at reasonable speeds, it's going to take a certain size radius. And if that radius won't fit, you either can't run those passenger trains at that speed, or you got to go to a smaller scale. And you made that compensation. I mean, you can do things like you can do a switching layout and have sharp curves because you're going slow, etc., and you're running smaller equipment. If you're and era matters. You wouldn't think it would, but era matters a lot. I mean, if you're running modern equipment, double stacks and auto racks and big long equipment, you've got to have bigger radiuses and a bigger room because the equipment and the trains are bigger. Versus if you're modeling 1910 where everything is 30, 40 foot, you can get away with a lot more, and you can use a larger scale. You could use O scale if you were modeling 1910 in the same room that you'd have to have for HO scale if you were modeling 1980, say. So era matters. What equipment and what you're trying to do. How fast you want to run it. That really does matter. If you want to run mainline trains at mainline speeds, you're going to have curves that support it. But if you just run a little switching layout where everything's running 10, 15 scale miles an hour, you can get away with a lot tighter radius as well. So everything plays into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is true. I've been to club layouts and all that, and there's some layouts that they'll tell you can't go faster than this speed on these corners.
That's fun too. From an operation standpoint, having speed restrictions, that's cool. Yeah.
Well, because the corner's tight or something like that.
And I'm going to implement that on my layout. I've got one section in a peninsula where I could go wider, but it would put the track all the way to the outside edges. So I'm going to go a little tighter on the radius and run a speed restriction. Everything just has to slow down. It's better for operation anyway.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things play into that. If you're building a small layout, go for the larger radius and you'll be safe. If you're building a really tight layout, then either narrow your objective or lower your scale or something like that. And if if you're building like a big club layout or something, I mean, when I have a bigger room, I'm gonna make changes to this layout. If I had, if I had a basement, unquestionably, I'd make everything 48-inch radius. And the real railroad, a 72-inch radius, a 100-inch radius in HO scale would have a speed restriction. I mean, the real railroad, the thing is that we are so drastically compressing curve radiuses. On the real railroad, everything would be a 150 or 200-inch curve. They'd be huge, unmodelable, huge. So you got to take that into account. We're running scale-size equipment on curves that would never, never, never be used on the road. Nowhere close. I mean, like I said, a 72-inch radius would be a 20-mile-an-hour speed restriction curve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If I was building modules, I'd use the 3-module curve trick. If you guys have seen that done, you can do a curve in a single module, and it's a 48-inch radius. Actually, it's like a 44-inch radius, and a 42 on the center on a single module curve section for a modular layout. But you can use a 3-module design. N-Track has a 3-module design, and it lets you use a much wider. I think it's a 120-inch radius, something like that. It's about 10-foot radius. That looks awesome. I mean, man, that looks great. Another trick for curve radiuses people don't take into account is where you are standing. If you are on the inside of the curve, you can get away with a steeper radius than if you're on the outside of the curve. If you're standing on the outside of the curve, like on a piece of plywood, then sharper radiuses show off a lot. You can see the points of the cars coming out. However, on an inside radius, you can hide steeper radiuses better. So if you're going around a room, you can hide steeper radiuses. And then when you come out into a peninsula, you need a wider radius to make it look the same or equal.
Yeah, you'll see too much gap between the cars.
Yeah, but you don't see it on the inside of a curve if the layout's anywhere close to eye level. So, keep that in mind too, is that if you're building a layout in such a way has around the room or something with a peninsula, then put a pretty wide radius on the outside of the peninsula, and then on the inside of the peninsula, as the track comes into the peninsula, you can sharpen that curve up and get away with, maybe 4 or 6 inches in radius less. Whereas a 36 on a peninsula looks awesome. You can get away with a 30 or a 26 on the inside of a curve, like yours, Jimmy, where it's around the wall. You can get away with a lot sharper radius and things still look okay. And as long as you don't try to run auto racks at 70 miles an hour, you can run auto racks on a 24-inch radius. They won't look great, but they'll work, they'll run. And where you're standing on the inside of the radius, you get away with a little more than you think you would.
Yeah, I never really thought about that until you said something about it.
I've seen several layouts designed with S-curves, and Mike Confalone, for example, has a 30-inch radius on one curve and a 24-inch radius on another curve. The 24, you stand on the inside. The 30, you stand on the outside. He did that on purpose, so and it essentially looks the same, even though he needed a 24 somewhere. If you have to, instead of doing two 27s, do a 24 on the end where you stand on the inside and a 30 where you stand on the outside. It will look better to you to compensate instead of running 27s for both. And you get the same, it takes the same amount of floor space.
Well, we're kind of coming up on the bewitching hour here. Anybody got anything else they want to talk about, ask a question about, or any comments?
Yeah, what is hold on a second here. I gotta find it here now. Gosh darn it. What is a suppression capacitor and inductor, or RF chokes?
So, yeah, a choking capacitor is like what's called a tank circuit in electronic design. So a tank circuit traps electricity for a short period of time, bounces it back and forth between an inductor and a capacitor. A tank circuit is used to turn AC to DC, or can be used to load a capacitor like a keep alive. A cap, the way you're talking about, is probably filtering a frequency out, most likely. Mostly doing a low frequency reject, dropping low frequencies or dropping DC out of a circuit, which will reduce the signal problems on DCC. That's one reason you'd use it. Or you might use it in an audio circuit to drop the lowest frequencies that cause your speaker to hum. That's a couple reasons I can think of why you would wire something that way.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking is because it's supposed to be removed if you're going to install a different style of decoder.
Well, it's dropping more of the DC out of it. So everybody thinks decoders and DCC are DC, and they are somewhat DC, but they're actually what's called square wave. So you can use a DC drop circuit, a filter that drops DC, and still have your DCC equipment work. Not only have it work, but have it work better. Have less signal collisions that cause delays in getting a signal to a locomotive. Sometimes if you're having problems with a locomotive responding real slowly to turning the throttle on or stopping it or whatever, a lot of time that's due to signal collisions, and DC filtering is one way to reduce your number of collisions by making your signal more pure DCC and removing some of the inherent DC that gets on the line. So.
Okay, well that answered my question.
Yeah, I can see that improving a DCC decoder's functionality. Now, a good quality DCC decoder from TCS or Tsunami or one of those guys, they will have a DC low pass filter built into them. The cheaper decoders, that's one of the things they leave off, and that's why they respond slower, because they're having to deal with signal collisions, and why they're more fickle. They don't have those filters. But you can buy that filter you're talking about, stick it on a cheap decoder, and get the same benefit as some of the higher end ones.
Maybe that's what's wrong with that cheap lens decoder then.
I haven't had the only experience I have with lens decoders is the fact that Bachman uses them, and I do not have good luck with those decoders. They're slow to respond, and they don't work well. And it's too easy to change them on my Bachman PAs, and the sound is not good for Bachman either.
Yeah.
So putting a lock sound decoder in there is just a no-brainer.
Well, I mean, Bachman's using a very cheap lens.
Yes.
So, in fact, lens makes this decoder strictly for Bachman, is what Donnie told me.
That makes sense.
It's made to Bachman specifications because they don't want
Pay
a
for it.
high end or whatever. They want cheapest decoder in there just so it will run.
So
So
they claim it's DCC, basically.
yeah.
And you still have to put a decoder in them. I buy the Bachmans. After I bought the first, played with it, didn't like it so good. I bought the next two, the B unit and the reverse A unit. I bought them DC only, so that I could just know when I was going to have to buy a decoder.
Yeah, like that RS2 I've got, it's a Bachman, and like I said, that decoder went out in a year's time, and I thought it was running okay until I replaced the decoder with what Donnie told me to put in there. Man, I think it runs really great now.
And they're
I just
pretty
got to go
locomotive.
in. I just need to go in and change some CVs because when I'm changing speed, especially at low speed, it jumps from one speed step to the next. It's not a smooth transition.
Oh yeah,
So I
yeah.
got,
Decoder Pro, brother. Decoder Pro, no question. But the Bachman RS3 and my Bachman PAs, those are beautiful locomotives. Good paint job, really nice model, separate grab irons, blah, blah, blah. They're really nice, looks-wise. And even the motor in them runs okay. But the electronics that Bachman puts in, that's trash.
yeah. Yeah, you buy that, you might as well just go buy another. That decoder I bought wasn't all that expensive. I think it was about $24. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's all it is a mobile decoder. It doesn't have sound to it.
Well, and the lock sound that I'm going to put in my PAs is about $50 or $55 a piece. If you buy the DC only version, it's $30 cheaper. So just think that you're getting a good decoder with really good sound that will work really well, and it's going to cost you about $25 if you're buying the locomotive, and you can buy the DC only version of it and put a decoder in. So if it costs $100 for the locomotive, mine costs $72 from Trainmasters down there, down there, your little store. I bought my first one down there, I think, and I paid a little bit more for it because I got it with DCC. Now the next two I bought for $72, quite a bit cheaper, and I'm gonna be out an extra $50 on them. I'll have $125 in those locomotives with good sound, with a good decoder, and they look good, they run good. That's a good price for a locomotive. Good looking diesel for $125. Yeah, you're coming out pretty good.
Yeah. But those are not plug and play where you can plug a decoder in. You'll have to hardwire it.
They are if you buy the DCC version, but it don't hurt my feelings to put the plug on. Now, if I hardwire one, since I'm in HO scale, if I was in N scale, I wouldn't put the plug in because I would want to use that space for. Well, I would need the space. But in HO scale, you've got enough room that you can buy the little plug and just hardwire the plug in, the couple little connectors to the lights and to the trucks and to the motor, and wire a plug in. And then you can plug in a lock sound or a Tsunami or a TCS or whatever brand decoder you want to use. But I would say if you have the space, put the plug in. Because if you don't put the plug in, count on that decoder frying.
Yeah.
You put the plug in, it'll never go bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we've pretty much got almost a full 2 hours in here. Phil, Jason, Jim, one of y'all want to go start another hangout? Everybody will just jump over there. I'll end this show. Who wants to start another hangout? Anybody?
Not me, because I'm gonna probably be heading to bed pretty quick here.
Yeah, okay. Jim, you want to start a hangout, or Phil?
I'm heading to bed too.
Well, just go to bed, Phil. I don't care.
Ooh,
Yeah, I know,
tired
Bob.
people.
You got to go to work tomorrow.
Not really.
Oh, okay.
That's
Sort of.
funny.
It's sort of one of those weird down day training days that. What the BS?
Uh,
Sounds like
will
a
be
day off.
working. Yeah, pretty much.
That don't sound like BS to me. A day off sounds like an awesome thing.
Well, see, all the
Congratulations.
military guys have to go do their training and stuff, and let's do some bowling or some roller skating or doing some sort of physical activity kind of thing, and then everybody else who doesn't want to do that goes, well, nothing else to do around here. Let's go
Stay at
home.
home. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, somebody want to start a hang up? I want to shut this one down.
Okay.
Okay.
Somebody want to start one, or?
Yeah, I'll go start one.
Well, I mean, if you're going to bed, Phil.
Okay, I'll go start one.
That's
All right,
funny.
well, you go start one, and I'll bring this to an end, to a close here, and
Okay.
the viewers out there, if you want, of course, there won't be no Q&A on it, but if you're not too shy or bashful, got your camera working, look for Phil Wyman's Hangout post. Come on in and join us. You're very welcome to do so. And all right, let me do this the right way. Troy's here. I have to do this. He'll go tell dude. Johnny ain't doing it right. Nah. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being in here tonight. We've had a pretty good show, and panel's been fairly full, and had a lot of viewers too. Viewership's been the Q&A's run about 12 people there, 13 I think at one point. Maintained almost 6 to 8 people on the panel, so not a bad show. We've had some good topics, good conversation. So with that said, I'd just like to tell everybody to keep checking in on the YouTubeModelBuilders.com website for all the latest news and info on presentations, the eMag, and live show schedules. The live show is once a month, usually about the third weekend of the month, third Saturday. The eMag is bi-monthly. Comes out every 2 months. You can sign up on YouTubeModelBuilders.com to get a notification when it comes out, so you can go download it and read it at your leisure. Lost my place here. Train of thought. Of course, live shows are there. We have Tuesday night presentations. That one there, we have 4 people working those now. So we have one person presenting every week with their own topics and guests. So Tuesday night is a topic-oriented hangout. That's every Tuesday night. And both the Tuesday and Thursday nights are at 9 o'clock Central Time. So check your time zone, see if you need to come in an hour early, late, or whatever. Yeah, funny. Got a comment up here, train of thought, LOL. So, just go check on, of course, you have Thursday night general hangout each week, which is a general topic. And want to say you can go to the website and then sign up for the eMag. I've already mentioned that. And want to say thank you to all the participants in tonight's hangout, both on the panel and in the Q&A. We've had some good questions from the people in the Q&A too. Interested questions. So with that said, gentlemen, thank you for your time tonight. And this concludes this Thursday night's general hangout. Hope everybody has a good weekend, and I'll see you next week.
See you.
So yeah.
Bye.